Thank you so much, Barbara. That was a great overview and really talked to the real-world perspective, which is ultimately where we are all living. And now I'm thrilled to be able to introduce Cynthia Spry. Cynthia will be talking about best sterilization practices. And most importantly, she'll be talking about it from your world perspective. Now I'd like to introduce Cynthia Spry. Thank you so much, Cynthia.
My name is Cynthia Spry. By background, an operating room nurse, master's prepared in education and nursing, and certified in operating room nursing. Currently, I am an independent clinical consultant with primary focus on sterilization and disinfection. I co-chair the AMI committee that writes ST79. ST79 is titled Comprehensive Guide to Steam Sterilization and Sterility Assurance in Healthcare Facilities. And that is actually the document that states the standards and the guidelines for processing in hospitals in the United States. It really is the ultimate guideline. That, coupled with the AORN recommended practices for instrument processing, are what everybody really needs to go by. Well, I think this is an interesting time. I think it's a time of transition. People are looking at the fact that they're going to be mandated to do things differently in terms of instrument processing. And it's going to take a little adjusting, and I think there's some confusion as to what needs to be done, how to get it done, and people are anxious. Anytime you have change, they're anxious. Is it going to be difficult? You know, there are people who are early adopters, and then there are those who are kind of wait and see. So you've got all of that to deal with, but it's in the background. The background piece is that it's mandated that people have to change. If they're using a liquid peracetic acid system, they have a limited amount of time in which they must transition into another technology. So this is a wonderful time. I think it's a wonderful time to be able to look at what you're doing, what you have been doing, and say, how can I do it? And perhaps I can do it even better. So that's kind of why I'm here, and hopefully I can help people make that transition. There's a major difference between just-in-time sterilization and terminal sterilization. Let me start with just-in-time sterilization. It actually means what it says. It is sterilization of an item that's intended to be used just in time. So to elaborate on that, what that means is after you process that item, you must use it right away, and you may not store it for later use. It is packaged in such a way that it doesn't permit storage indefinitely. So it's either used immediately or it's just not used, and then it's processed later on again. Now, in a perfect world, there wouldn't be any just-in-time sterilization. Everything would be done so that it could be stored for later use. But in the real world, in an operating room, you have instances where you have to have something immediately that may not be readily available on the shelf in a sterile package. And so we have flash sterilizers and we have liquid peracetic acid systems that are used to provide rapid turnaround of instruments by sterilizing them in a manner that they cannot be stored. Terminal sterilization is different. It's still sterilization, but at the end of the process, you have a package that's wrapped or contained in some manner that permits sterile storage. It can be stored on a shelf. I can only encourage people to ensure that they have a copy of ST79, because that document identifies all of the best practices. But when you talk about best practices for sterilization, it's not just popping it in the sterilizer. It's maintaining it in the operating room, free of debris. It's transporting it to the area where it's going to be decontaminated. It's where it's decontaminated. It's cleaning. It's inspection. It's packaging. It's loading the sterilizer. It's running the sterilizer using biological and chemical monitors to ensure the efficacy of the sterilization process, and then it's transport back to where it's going to be stored, and then it's maintaining a good storage area. So all of those have their own set of practices. If you're looking at sterilization, just that one component of instrument processing, there are many, many best practices. I think it's important that facilities, they know they have to transition out of liquid peracetic acid. They have a time frame in which to do that. I think it's foolish to wait. Why wait till the end when everybody will be? It's like the Christmas rush. Wouldn't you rather have fewer people in the store? It's the same principle. And it is going to take a little bit of adjusting. It's not difficult, but it will take some. You have to teach people what they have to do differently. So you want to have a little bit of lead time to work out the kinks, and you can still run the other system. You have a time frame in which you can still use it. So if you have a real problem, transitioning, you can still fall back on this for a short period of time. So I think it's mandatory, critical that people start transitioning now. Do not wait. I think when you are considering transitioning from the STERIS System 1, the first thing you do is look at the FDA website, because they have provided alternative solutions to using the STERIS System 1. It also depends. Are you talking about transitioning out of STERIS System 1 in the GI lab or in the operating room? And I think we're focused on the operating room, so I want to stay with that. So the next thing you do is look at the standard, and I already said the standard is terminal sterilization. So now you want to look at a sterilizer. You don't want something that's just in time. You want to look at something that will sterilize. You want something that's fast. You want something that's neat, clean, easy to operate. And there are many options, but in the operating room, there's never extra space, never. You can build an operating room today with lots of storage space, and in a month, you'll be out of space. People will ask, can you sterilize in the operating room? And of course you can. We're already doing just-in-time sterilization. You can do terminal sterilization in the OR just as readily. There are some guidelines. For example, you don't clean the instruments in preparation for sterilization in a scrub sink or in an area where patient care is being provided. But that's true anyway. That's already true. The one difference, I think, is when you're going to do terminal sterilization in the operating room, as opposed to just in time, which we do all the time, is that you're going to have to package the device to create a terminal process. So you need to have a little bit of space where you're going to probably have a large selection of pouches or some possible trays or some containers that are intended strictly for this type of sterilization. And so you need a little space, and you'll have to package it. But that's really, that's the only hardship, if you will. We sterilize all the time in the OR. We should be using best practice for what we're doing now. Now we're just going to do a little bit differently and better.